Hello, everybody. Welcome to our new webinar on our webinar series. Thanks for attending last week. Well, the last webinar, we were talking about the Green Ecuador programs. And today we have a really innovative idea and programs that maybe you have never heard about the self-drive programs. And Jassy today will explain more about and also give us a brief update about the current situation in Ecuador. So yeah, today Jassy is not in Chilcabamba, but is kind of cold today in Quito, so it's like being there. Jassy, how are you doing?
All right, Diego, good morning. Thank you again for organizing another fun webinar. It's incredible how much work you make me do, man. I never been so busy thanks to your tight schedule. So really glad to have you on board, man. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us on another webinar. We're starting very punctual today because, yeah, I'm not in Chilcabamba yet, but I have a schedule leaving to Chilcabamba in a couple of hours' time. We're going to spend a week in the mountains now. You know, we're taking every single excuse to be able to get out of the city after 4 months of strict lockdown. So, and this home office deal and this virtual space is making things easier and easier for us to be able to work from anywhere, which is great. So Diego, thanks again, man, for organizing this, for organizing the Green Ecuador webinar. It was a lot of fun. I got a lot of feedback, positive feedback, luckily, and I got a lot of recommendations for me to breathe. So I will try and make it a little bit more paced. And because it seems like I got carried away in Chilcabamba, I was way too excited about being there that I kind of pushed really hard on all of the content that we wanted to share about these explorations we have in COTOPAXI, in Otavalo, as well as in the cloud forest. So taking advantage of the time, Diego, I wanted to give a quick update on how things are doing in Ecuador. Honestly, we haven't lived a lot of changes in the past couple of weeks or since we last spoke. The numbers are more or less, you know, obviously it's evolving, right? The pandemic here, we have 67,000 cases going towards 68,000 cases this week, most likely, with 5,047 people that passed away because of this coronavirus. But the situation in the remote areas of the Andes are more or less the same, you know, 2,000 cases in Cuenca, 600 cases in RIOBAMBA, 0 cases in Pedregal in Chilcabamba, and 500 cases on the closest city to Chilcabamba. In Tena, we have 500 cases only. I'm choosing these cities because those are the areas where we're gonna be driving today with our new self-drive programs we are reintroducing into the market. Quito, it's now probably the city where the cases are growing the most. We have in total 9,600 cases registered in Quito, but Ted was kind enough to give us a comparison. It seems like Florida yesterday had 15,000 cases in only one day. So I guess that puts things in perspective on where are we at in Quito and in general in Ecuador with the evolution of the curve. You know, so national parks are reopening. Cotopaxi is reopened. So this week I will be able to go inside the national park and walk around Limpio Pungo Lake, hopefully with my kids, and do some mountain biking there. I'm looking forward to it. The Galapagos National Park is officially reopened, as you guys said. The tourism is already restarting in the islands, even though there are certain regulations to be followed. For example, to get into the Galapagos, you need to do a PCR test 96 hours before your flight, your domestic flight from Ecuador mainland to the Galapagos. Plus, you also have to bring your PCR test made before coming to Ecuador 72 hours before your trip. So that means you have to do 2 tests. And even though you have a negative test when getting into Ecuador, you still have to quarantine for 14 days at a hotel or a house, right? So there is still some strict regulations. Obviously, we are not ready to fully reopen, but I think though these are all natural and normal measures for an organized reopening of the country. I don't know if you saw, maybe some of you were friends on Instagram or Facebook, but we had our first international clients going to Chilcabamba last week. I went quickly there for the day on Wednesday just to see if that was true or not, which was great. And it was fantastic to have our first clients after 3 months traveling around. That was really exciting, and it was kind of a moving moment. So that's in a nutshell the updates, Diego, on what's happening in terms of COVID and where are we staying. So today we're going to be talking about self-drive, right? Remember that we've been talking about, let me just get this right, Diego. Please let me know if you have the full screen shared. Yeah, are we there? Cool. So fantastic. Thank you very much. So guys, we've been preparing these promotional programs that we released a couple of weeks ago. As you probably saw, we have a lot of our favorite programs on sale. You know, the Green Ecuador programs are now available with 20% discount off for the season, for bookings that will happen from now until the end of the year, if I'm not wrong, Diego, and is going to be valid throughout 2021. So that's really exciting. And the development of Green Ecuador and the promotion of the Green Ecuador programs go along with the same style of travel we envision will be happening in the next 18 months, right? We believe that 2020, if there is some tourism in Ecuador, and 2021 will be programs more focused on the outdoors, small groups, private tours, as well as more independent travel. And what more independent than self-driving, right, Diego? So this is a really exciting project. This is not something that is happening overnight. This is a project that we developed a couple of years ago, but we've been very, not shy, but I think that the moment, you know, we've been promoting and the program is being developing more organically. We haven't been giving it a big push, but now we feel like this is the ideal way of travel through Ecuador for the independent traveler. I think one important thing around the self-drives is something that any Ecuadorian will tell you about the highlights of our country. Very small country, very easy to get to places, very diverse. So imagine you can have your breakfast in your hotel in Quito. You can drive through the high pass of the Andes and have a hot spring bath in Papayacta and probably have lunch, and you could end up having dinner in the Amazon rainforest. So that's kind of exactly what we wanted to accomplish with our self-drive programs, you know, to highlight the beauty and diversity and the easy access to the different ecosystems of Ecuador at your own pace, right? So like we said, this is the ultimate independent travel choice, you know, to be able to go and explore these remote areas on your own, like this beautiful photo we took a couple of years ago in QUILOTOA, which is, you know, mind-blowing, the possibility to be able to hike on the different trails down to the crater or around the loop. But, you know, this is, you know, being able to drive around and find these incredible highlights of our Andes on your own. It's amazing. Obviously, we are covering a lot of ground during the self-drives, and we're exploring several of the highlights of our country. And not only the highlights, but at your own pace. So that's the combination of the ultimate independent traveling through very well-known areas of our country, right? I'm gonna go deep into the details of each of these programs, but you know, that's part of the USP of this proposal. And I decided to bring in a slide from the Financial Times of one press trip that we did within the self-drives. And I think the journalist that we brought says it all here. He says, well, road improvements are making it easier for visitors to explore the country. And that's what it's all about, right? Ecuador is not only the highlights, it's not only the easy access, but it's the quality of the access into this area, you know. Ecuador in the past 15 years transformed its infrastructure, highways, airports, ports, you know, everything that is related to macro infrastructure It's probably the biggest developments we lived and experienced that transformed the landscape of Ecuador mainland. So nowadays it's very easy to drive around. It's very easy to find your way around, and it's safe to drive around, which is an important element for all of these trips. This is not your typical fly and drive kind of program. This is not about getting into Ecuador, getting the keys of a car and finding your way. These are programs that are developed with hand-picked lodging, hand-picked excursions, kilometer by kilometer design, and I'm gonna give you a little bit of details on that. But I think it's important to understand that we have tested all of these programs. You know, I drove myself throughout Ecuador to find the best routes and the best attractions and make sure that people will find their way easily, but also will find interesting things to do along the way. They are not too far apart from each other. Our operations team as well has driven all across Ecuador to experience themselves the different programs. And obviously, as usual, Tropic will handpick the properties for these programs, thinking about, you know, parking lots, easy access, you know, everything that, and fantastic locations, obviously, right? So this is very important for you all to know. And obviously, like we said on our last webinar, always with our Tropic assistance during your adventure, right? We have the pictures of, again, Silvia, Fer, and Pau. These are the three wizards behind our operations team. And obviously Paola, who is in charge of our on-tour system that would include the concierge service. And obviously with the self-drive programs, this is a person that will be checking in on clients on a daily basis to make sure that they got into the property safely. If they need some advice for the following day's activities, as well as any kind of coordination or support that might be needed. So this is very important for you guys to know. On the Tropic assistance scene, we have a lot of things happening. Diego, I'm gonna keep these as surprises for the upcoming weeks, but we are bringing new things to the marketplace based on the COVID developments. We lock an incredible deal to strengthen the insurance that we provide to all of our clients. And we'll be sharing a lot more information about that, as well as the possibility for all of you to book Paola to provide you with a private presentation live on our protocols and all of the developments we have done on the operations post-COVID. So stay tuned for that. Our sales team will be inviting you to book Paola for yourself for 30 minutes for a quick update on our protocols. But if you guys would like to jump in and ask for your appointment, please feel free to drop us a line, because this is something that we have prepared and we are gearing towards operation towards the end of the year. So it's good for us to start sharing what we have developed in the last couple of months in terms of best practices within post-COVID operations. So jumping into the self-drive programs, right? Easy steps, obviously. Pick up the car at the airport. So we have a relationship and a partnership developed with a rent-a-car, and we decided that renting the car at the airport will be the easiest place, because you could go straight into the highways and start exploring, right? Getting into Quito can be messy, so we are trying to avoid getting into rush hours and traffic of Quito. Quito is probably the most challenging place to drive in Ecuador, so we would like for people to be able to get their cars at the airport and start exploring from there, any of the two programs. We'll obviously have to mount we call it the welcome kit, right? That includes obviously a GPS system that we have both of our programs already logged in. So we have already created the two programs in the systems of the GPS. And we also have developed this beautiful, obviously a la Tropic, you know, with a lot of love, we have created these beautiful booklets that we call the Explorer's Guide. This is only available for your clients when they come, but we have a handmade Explorer's Guide made with a local artist where showcases all of the day by day, right? It's handmade, it's prepared by each of your clients. And like I said here, we have an unbranded version here, but I said your logo can be here, right? So for a very small fee, you can actually create a gift to your clients that is not only the guidance throughout the trip, that is personalized with your client's name, but you can also include your logo. And this will be a key tool for your clients to explore on their day-by-day, where they can actually write notes and make this their diary during the trip. So we have prepared two documents, one for each of the trips that we launched recently. And obviously, along the way, we have booked all of the excursions that are needed, right? All of the hotels are booked by us. All of the activities that are included are booked by us. And obviously, there are some days you have some downtime where we have suggestions on what to do in each of these places. So within this document that we have created, this is a screenshot of what your clients will get on the document. It even includes how to mount a GPS in case clients need. Obviously, nowadays we're so used to Google Maps and Waze on our smartphones, but we believe that all of the assistance should be get. Obviously, each of our vehicles and the program includes the GPS. It includes Wi-Fi for our clients connect their smartphones within the phone, as well as the Explorer's Guide. So we want to give clients as many tools as possible for them to be able to travel safely and to have some peace of mind that they have all of the tools that are necessary. But that's the sort of details that we're including in this document, you know, guidance on how to use your GPS. Obviously, a la Tropic, we always try to bring our own voice to your client's journey. So we kind of introduce the adventure to clients with a few, you know, suggestions and what to expect. So for example, we start the document saying, for experienced drivers with a sense of adventure. That's the kind of clients we believe should be getting this into this adventure and should get in this program. We're talking about the self-drive program, right? So this is for independent travelers who can find a way around, who are not afraid of getting lost, who won't freak out on a highway if they lose the Wi-Fi or they lose the signal. Is definitely something we would expect for them to be able to handle themselves. You know, even though we will create all of the assistance that is at our hands, but for example, changing a tire, you know, something as simple as changing a tire, will be asking, you know, clients to be able to handle themselves that. And I have highlighted a few things here on the document. For example, the first paragraph of Ecuadorian roads. The road network in Ecuador is generally good, with some fast major routes. For example, the Pan American Highway section of the Avenue of the Volcanoes has 3 to 4 paved lanes, believe it or not, in Ecuador, and minor roads might be unpaved or without road markings. In the rainy season, generally from January to May, small landslides can cover stretches of road with mud and stones, so care is required. Obviously, we won't ask for people to drive through any landslides, but you might have to wait until someone cleans that for you. So that's the sense of adventure we would like clients to have. And obviously, we have prepared the document that will take clients through any of these challenges that could appear along the way. You know, for example, we have a chapter that calls about rules of the road in Ecuador. I have highlighted two that I like, you know, drive on the right-hand side for my British friends on the other side of the screen today, and overtake on the left. Some Ecuadorians do overtake on the right, believe it or not, but you should be overtaking on the left. And a very important tip, the permitted blood alcohol level is 0.07. So it's very strict. So we have to make sure that the beer, the celebration of the beer and the wine just at the end of the day when you're safe at the lodge. You know, so we're putting a range of different suggestions and orientations and tips along the way of this document. And one important thing about the rent-a-car hire is, for example, that our representative will meet you to assist you with the paperwork, right? So one cool thing about this program is that it does include one staff member that will welcome you and will take you to the rent-a-car and will take you through the steps. It basically will help you set up the Wi-Fi, set up the GPS, give you the keys, give you some pointers, learn how to use the Explorer's Guide, and then you're off, right? So that's part of the service. So it's kind of a high-end self-drive program, right? Because there is a lot of hand-holding, at least in the beginning. And that's kind of the screenshot of two of the programs. One of the programs is called Along the Avenue of the Volcanoes, which is pretty much a program that goes along the Andes, right? It goes from Quito all the way down to Guayaquil. It's the classic Avenue of the Volcanoes. As you can see, we will put your name, you know, in this case, it was prepared for me and my family on one of the trials that we did. So especially prepared for Jasivan and Cristina, Alegría, and Tiago. So your client's name will be there whenever we prepare this explorer's guide. And when we talk about, you know, the different programs, you do have a map. We have prepared a map, and this we're gonna now share with you the experience, right? We're not gonna go into the details of what happens minute by minute. That we can send you the itineraries, but the idea was to give you kind of an intro on how we created these experiences, right? And everything that is behind it. It took many months for us to drive around, to prepare the routes, to go the minute by the minute, to make sure that all of the signs are well mapped and explained on the document. But the journey is pretty much Quito to Guayaquil. That's the whole idea, to cover the highlights of Ecuador in the Avenue of the Volcanoes, in the Pan American Highway, or in the Andes, right? So it's Quito to Cotopaxi on day one, Cotopaxi, CHUGCHILLAN, which is towards the QUILOTOA lake. Then obviously CHUGCHILLAN, BANOS, where you cover the QUILOTOA lakes, and then you drop down into this introduction to the rainforest that is BANOS, a well-known, fun, adventurous city. Then you have a full day in BANOS for you to enjoy and explore around. Then you continue down south from BANOS to RIOBAMBA and down to ALAUSI to have all of these beautiful views of Chimborazo and everything that is in between. And then you have ALAUSI, Ingapirca, Cuenca, which is this beautiful stretch. Probably the most scenic drive in Ecuador is the ALAUSI Cuenca drive. It's unbelievable getting into the Cañar province. And then obviously some time to explore Cuenca and the surrounding. There is a ton to do. And then Cuenca to Guayaquil, where we end. So it's an 8-day program. And obviously, you know, this is we've been talking a lot about this stretch, you know, Quito to Cotopaxi. We spoke yesterday about Green Ecuador in Cotopaxi yesterday, I mean, on the last webinar, Quito to Cotopaxi. So this is pretty much the deal to drive, you know, as we said on our last presentation, you are 1 hour, 30 minutes, you know, from the airport to Cotopaxi. So it's very easy to get in. Even if you get lost on the way and it takes you 2 hours, you know, it's still very close distance for you to enjoy the scenery, to find your way around, to get familiarized with the document, the Explorer's Guide, and the equipment. This area is completely covered. You have cell phone coverage. We're going to have Wi-Fi. You're going to have GPS working. So it's kind of an easy day to find a way around. And then the idea is for you to go from Quito up to CHUGCHILLAN. We're talking about going deep into the Cotopaxi province, right? Traveling through the national park. So the idea is to enter Cotopaxi from the airport on day one. I'm sorry, you go from the airport to the northern border of the national park where Chilcabamba is, and then the whole idea is for you on the following day to go across the national park, to go to enter on the northern border of the Cotopaxi National Park and exit on the southern border of the Cotopaxi National Park. And you're more or less in the area of La Tacunga, from where you're going to go up into CHUGCHILLAN area, which is the city, little village that is very close to QUILOTOA, where you're going to be able to spend, you know, the second night. So the idea is for you to be able to today enjoy mostly the Cotopaxi National Park, and then by mid-afternoon you will be reaching your destination and preparing for the following day's activity. That will be, you know, a full day of adventure going into the QUILOTOA crater lake, you know, so you're pretty much traveling down south, going around QUILOTOA again. So the whole idea is for you always to continue and not go on loops or drive and come back. So the idea is from CHUGCHILLAN, you drive up to QUILOTOA and have this beautiful view of this lake. And then on the way down to BANOS, we stop at Tigua, for example, to do our May Introduce You and painting workshop with the local host that works with us, and then continue driving down south to BANOS. So that's kind of the full day, where you're gonna high in the Andes and then dropping down into the Amazon. This is gonna be a dramatic day of changes, where you're gonna have this sense of introduction to the Amazon, right? We are not really in the Amazon rainforest. You actually, it's still very high. You're talking about more or less 1,000 to 1,200 meters altitude, but you can see, you know, the scenery change. You know, you can start seeing, you know, the rivers that go towards the Napo River down in the Orellana province. You can see, you know, active volcanoes with Tungurahua, Baños on the foothills of Tungurahua, but mostly you start seeing this green and lush of what the Amazon rainforest ecosystem looks like compared to the dry high Andes that we've been seeing in Cotopaxi, as well as CHUGCHILLAN and QUILOTOA, right? So the whole idea is for this day 4 in Baños, you're obviously with your car, right? So you can do many, many different things. You can just stay and chill and enjoy the property, or enjoy the city, go for a walk in the city, but you can also drive down and see, for example, in one of these pictures that you see me here, there is actually a big waterfall called the Pailón del Diablo. So you can go on this drive down to Puyo, really, you know, it's a couple of hours drive, and you're seeing all of these different waterfalls along the way, and then really dropping down into Puyo, which is the actually the Amazon rainforest. That's a photo I personally took of the Pastaza River that is along the way. So you can have these beautiful views and dramatic views of this canyon of the connection of the Andes, one of the connections that we have of the Andes with the Amazon rainforest. So this is a fun day because you have multiple things to do. You can go on a rafting trip using one of the adventure outfitters in Baños. You can rent a mountain bike and go on a bike ride down to these waterfalls. Like I said, you can just chill in Baños and have fun and go for a walk in the city and learn about, you know, the different things that happen in the city. Or you can hike up into these different trails that has the city to have a bird's eye view of the little town. Or you can even book a spa for the day and just relax and chill at the lodge, right? So the adventure continues down south. As I said, this becomes very dramatic in terms of landscape and views. Going from Baños, you're going up again to Riobamba. And the beauty of Riobamba is obviously Chimborazo that you see on that beautiful photo that Diego found out, or probably took himself driving in one of his trips down south. And, you know, well, Chimborazo, it speaks for itself, you know, the importance of this mountain for us Ecuadorians that usually find fun facts about the little things that we have around here. As you know, the summit of Chimborazo, if you measure from the center of the earth to the top, it's you know, the highest point in the world, and this the closest point to the sun. Remember, measuring from the center of the earth. So it's a pretty impressive mountain. Really, really. I haven't climbed it yet, so I wouldn't tell you more details about how it feels up there, but I do. It's on my bucket list to be able to go up there someday. But just the view from the distance is unbelievable, right? And we're talking about Chimborazo province as well. And Chimborazo province, to me, is probably the most raw area to have these really remote indigenous communities of Ecuador, right? As you know, Otavalo is a very easy to get destination. The local community is so involved in tourism. So, you know, it does feel a little bit commercial, right? The Otavaleños are traders. So you go into the market and people know, and they know how to handle ourselves and everything and have a conversation with tourists and anyone really. But when you go into the Chimborazo area, especially in these remote areas that we're going to be driving, you will be experiencing, you know, a very authentic interaction with the local communities. And along the way, you have indigenous markets like Saquicilí and Pujilí. So you will be able to see very authentic areas of the remote and highest part of our Andes in Ecuador, in this specific region. In Riobamba, we also have a small May I Introduce You To program. It's called the Lama Trek that you probably are familiar with. If you have clients doing our fully guided Avenue of the Volcanoes programs, we usually will include. And obviously we have the guidance for you to do that. And I think you cannot miss the opportunity to hang out a little bit with some locals and have a meal with a local family and go for a walk with a local, as well as some llamas. I think it's really fun. And that continues down to ALAUSI, where ALAUSI, the only reason you go to ALAUSI is to see the Devil's Nose train ride. Obviously, as most of you know, right now we are in transition with the train. You know, within the COVID crisis, the president of Ecuador shut down many different publicly owned businesses. That includes the Tren Ecuador. So now all of the routes are closed, but there is a lot of conversation that most likely and hopefully the local authority of ALAUSI will take over this operation of the Devil's Nose train ride, because first of all, that's a very profitable one because it's a very popular train ride. I think is the most dramatic expression of this crazy engineer project that was developed many years ago, and also is a lot of fun. But even if our clients are not going to be able to do the train ride, we already have alternative plans. As you guys know, we work with the local communities in this area. So the idea is for us to be able to go down and see and be explained what the deal was with the train ride down to the bottom of the stop where the train used to go, called Sibambe, the Sibambe train station, and then to hike up to visit another community where we will have lunch. That's all part of the explanations you have on the Explorer's Guide. But we're hoping that by the end of the year, this train deal is already sorted. So the whole idea is for you to drive all the way down to ALAUSI. So actually the adventure happens within RIOBAMBA in that area. And then our idea is for you to be able to do ALAUSI on the morning and then continue down south to Ingapirca and then to get to Cuenca. This is actually a long drive day. You know, it might take, you know, your good 4 to 5 hours. So today, the day is really the driving and the landscape. Like I told you, this is, you know, I have done these drives many times in my life, and probably the most beautiful landscapes you can see in our Andean Avenue of the Volcanoes. It's in the Cañar province. You know, it's just, you know, because it feels like you're on this flat highlands, you know, so you're seeing the mountains, and it's just beautiful, and very different indigenous customs along the way. It feels very remote. So that's part of the attractions of this day. Obviously, on the way, seeing Ingapirca, there is this incredible Inca site, the better preserved Inca site we have in Ecuador. There is very close to Cuenca, so that's a must stop right along the way, and then continue down to Cuenca. And Cuenca doesn't need an introduction, right? It's a very small colonial city, very easy to move around compared to Quito or to Guayaquil. So this will be a very easy place to find your way, and then get to your hotel, and obviously then start exploring. We work with the hotels in the old town of Cuenca, and so obviously the idea is for you to be able to park your car and then go out and explore the city, go to the Panama Hat Museum, or to go into the very nice restaurants or microbreweries in town, and just go for a walk, or book one of our guys to do a city tour with you guys. And then obviously you have a free day in Cuenca for you to be able to explore the city on your own on the following day, or drive down to the artisans route in Gualaceo, Chordalec, San Bartolo, where we have created this network of may introduce you to experiences with the weaver and the jewelry maker and the guitar and the guitar maker and the Panama makers as well, the Lady Association Panama Hat makers we have along this route away from the city, on these valleys surrounding Cuenca. So, you know, incredible diversity, right? We're talking only about the Andes. We have done a lot in the past 6 days, the 7th day, and then 6 and 7 day, right? The idea is for you to arrive at the end of the day in Cuenca, and then you have the full day to explore Cuenca on day 7. And then on day 8, you will be driving from Cuenca down to Guayaquil. And this is also really impressive because you're gonna experience the dramatic changes. Again, another dramatic change of scenery from the high Andes of the National Park Cajas down to bananas and cacao plantation in the lowlands is really, and that's only in 2.5 hours time, you know, at the most 3 hours time, or 4 if you're stopping in Cajas. But driving per se, in 2.5 hours, you are down in the lowlands, on the lowlands of Guayaquil, where you have all of these lush and products that are exported all over the world. So remember, the other dramatic change was from QUILOTOA down to the Amazon in Baños, and now we're going from Cuenca down to the lowlands of the Pacific coast in Guayaquil. So, you know, highlights of this day is pretty much going from, you know, Cajas and then down into these plantations, stop in La Danesa, have a couple of hours of fun with Niels and his family, learning about how to make cacao and chocolate and etc. And then finishing your day in Guayaquil, where you should be dropping off the car right away. We wouldn't recommend, you know, to have a car in Guayaquil because it can get a little bit messy on a big city. We wouldn't recommend that. So the instructions will be to drop off the car in Guayaquil and then just take a cab or one of our transfers to your hotel, because most likely you'll be going afterwards to the Galapagos Islands. So that will be kind of an ideal way to connect both Ecuador mainland and the Galapagos Islands. So that's our sky driving. That's the title of our self-drives along the Avenue of the Volcanoes. So that's program number 1 that really packs all of the Avenue of the Volcanoes, which is a classic you can do with us on a private basis as well, with a guide and a driver in our own vehicles. But the whole idea is for you to have this adventure on your own. And then we have our sky driving on the high roads of the Andes. This is actually the program that inspired us to create these self-drive programs. Because 10 or 15 years ago, we wouldn't dare driving to the Amazon rainforest. That will be crazy. You know, I remember back in the day when we used to take clients to see the Waorani people, only the drive from Quito to Puyo, where we used to take our charter flights into the Amazon, it could take us the whole day. Landslides and the highways, narrow roads. It was impossible. It was an adventure for a lot of Ecuadorian families to go into Puyo or Tena. Nowadays, you can go in 2.5, 3 hours, you're in Tena, or in 4 hours, you're in Puyo, because it's just far from the city, but you have this incredible Pan-American highway of 3 and 4 lanes, like we said. So we would never dare to do a self-drive program in this area without the dramatic changes on the highways that the Amazon rainforest has experienced in the past several years. And we're talking about the Amazon frontier, right? We're talking about cities like Tena and Puyo. We're not talking about remote areas like the Yasuni, even though there are some highways there, unfortunately, because of the oil exploitation. We're talking about more like Amazon cities. So this is again, you know, going back to the Explorer's Guide. I'm putting other pieces of the Explorer's Guide because this is a document we won't be sharing. This is a document that we give to clients here. But we have what to bring chapter for clients. We talk a little bit about weather conditions. We give guidance in terms of tips, right, for people on the document of the Explorer's Guide. So going back to this route, this is really, really cool because this is actually a loop that will start in Quito and end in Quito, right? So from Quito, we drop down slowly to the high Andes and then cloud forest and then Amazon rainforest, a lot of Amazon rainforest between Tena and Puyo, and then drive up via Baños and then back to Quito through the Pan-American highway, passing Cotopaxi, but going from south to north. So it's a beautiful loop, really off the beaten path, but with very well-known destinations. So this is kind of discovering the hidden Ecuador is an Ecuador that very few people have driven, even locals. I don't know if Diego probably has driven between Tena and Puyo. You know, these are areas that are opening up to everybody because now you actually have the connections to be able to drive through it. So slowly and day by day, you know, first of all, Quito to San Isidro. San Isidro, as you know, is our favorite lodge in the cloud forest that faces the Amazon rainforest. That's actually the only lodge in that area. So you have a day of airport, picking up the car, and then driving down to San Isidro with a stop in Papayata. I'm gonna give you more details about that. And then you have a full day in San Isidro, you know, for you to go on an early bird watch and a few hikes and enjoy the beautiful gastronomy they have at the property, as well as the new swimming pool they developed there, and this balcony and this viewpoint of the Amazon rainforest and the protected area that they have there that is pretty huge. I think it's 100 hectares they have protected, and kind of linking corridors between the high cloud forest and the Amazon rainforest. And then from San Isidro, we drive down to Tena. This is already Amazon frontier line. And then the MISAHUALLI area, which is the more touristic area of this Tena region. Then we have full day in Misahawali. Obviously, we want people to be able to go out and do some rafting, to go and see one of the rescue centers, to see some wildlife. And I think what attracts me the most about this alternative of day would be to go on a canoe on the Napo River, for example, and be able to see, you know, the vegetation and the river. That's always magical. And then continuing from Misahawali up or south to Puyo city, right? Puyo is another Amazon frontier city. Very interesting city because they use a lot of the components of the indigenous cultures of this area. I'm going to give you more details about it in a minute. And then driving up to Baños, right? And then continuing back into the Andes on the Pan American Highway until accessing the Cotopaxi National Park again, finishing in Chilcabamba, and then going back to the airport. So kind of a very cool, complete, adventurous loop. This is probably a little bit more adventurous because you're going to be seeing a lot of less traffic and people along the way. So like I said, day one, Quito to San Isidro, with a very nice stop to pretty much unplug from whatever you're having in your life. You know, you're going through a protected area that is called the Cayambe Coca, where you actually, if you're lucky, I haven't been that lucky yet in my life, but if you're lucky, you can have spectacle bears crossing the road, which is the only South American bear, as you probably know. So possibility to see spectacle bears on the way and then stopping at Papayacta for, you know, relaxing, getting your boundaries, you know, enjoying the swimming pools, grabbing a bite to eat, and then continuing down to San Isidro. So going back to the document of our Explorer's Guide, another example of the content, you know, so we have created this space for you to put your little notes on your diary. So on day one, I saw a bear and with a couple of cubs crossing the highway. That's, you know, the highlight of my trip, possibly, right? So the idea is for you to be able to write your notes on each day. And then you also have the details of the itinerary. As you can see, we put together a screenshot of what the GPS or the Google Map will look like. We're giving you, you know, heads up on the different details of picking up the car or optional morning visit to Papayacta Hot Springs and suggested lunch at Termas de Papayacta, drive to San Isidro. So it's kind of the breakdown of the day by day of day one, for example, right? And then, but we go really deep into the details of what happens during the day, right? So we will be able to give you a lot of little details on what happens in each kilometer, and look at the sign here, look at what happens there, you know, little reference to give clients reassurance, right? And as I said, you know, we're talking about day one. So here you can see at the bottom, and I highlighted in yellow, English assistance for check-in at rental car office, right? So that's part of the services. So as you can see, this is all well taught in terms of logistics and operations for your clients to feel secure and safe while embarking on this adventure with us. And then places to discover. So along the document, we have, you know, a little bit of tastings of the area, so people read it along the way. Imagine a family that someone who's not driving will be reading it, and everybody's getting excited and making decisions, right? And we make recommendations on what to do. We try to make things very clear for people not to get lost on the way. So we highlight a few things that we feel that can get a little bit confusing. For example, we include here on the bottom of the page, we add the contact of each of the hotels that you're going to spend the night. So you can also feel free to give the hotel a call. Remember that we have relationships with property owners, and we're friends, right, with all of these people. They are all embarking our crazy adventures. So they know that our clients should be arriving there. They know how they're going. It's not like a random arrival. So we have everybody alert and expecting our important clients to arrive into these different areas. And then we have fun things, like, for example, on the highlight here on the document, in Papayacta, you can stop and visit the hot springs resort, Termas de Papayacta, but don't be confused by a nearby basic hostel with a similar name, Pampayacta. So even little details like that, we kind of wanted to highlight and showcase for people to feel like, you know, just again, reassurance. It is a lot of common sense, but we don't trust a lot on the common sense. My dad says that common sense is the least common of the senses. So we decided to include a few tips along the way. And then, you know, San Isidro, we're talking about cloud forests. You're all experts, you know what's the deal with the cloud forest, mega diversity, bromeliads, orchids, and a lot of birds. So you're gonna have chances to hire a local guide or go on your own, depending on what type of birder are you. If you are, you can take an easy, simple to get trail and find your common birds of the area. And if you're a hardcore birder, you can go deep with one of our expert local guides and discover the place and enjoy the area and the property, you know, the comfortable food, simple accommodation, you know, as a la Ecuador, but, you know, very comfortable with comfortable food, with the owners and managers really looking into the details and making sure you're well taken care of. Then from San Isidro, you know, we drive down to Tena. As you know, this is an area, you know, is introduction to the Amazon. Like I said, this is a lot more about agro-tourism and adventure than a deep Amazon Yasuni experience, right? So let's not get confused. You are getting the sense of the Amazon, you're getting the humidity, you're getting the heat, you're getting the green, and you're seeing the beauty of it, but you're still on an area where is already you have a lot of settlers pretty much, right? So it's not like the remote areas of Yasuni where you have local isolated communities. This is an area that is well covered by highways and connections and communication. So you actually have settlements, cities, and that's the cool thing about the Self-Drive, that you're actually driving into places where you're seeing people every 20 minutes, you know, you're seeing little pueblitos every 20 minutes, and you'll be able to get assistance whenever you feel like you are lost. And the whole idea is to go into comfortable places. So we have our favorite lodges in the MISAHUALLI area. And the idea is for you to be able to go, for example, this day, what I love about this day is you go into Santa Rita, which is, I call it the chocolate community, right? And we point you on the right directions for you to go and visit this community that actually provides the cacao for the well-known Pacari chocolate brand that most of you might know. If you sell Ecuador, you've been in Ecuador, you definitely tried a Pacari chocolate. Well, that's the community that Pacari works with. And nowadays we helped and participated on the development of a little interpretation center where you do some, you know, ceremonies and you learn how to do chocolate. Actually, my favorite experience making chocolate is at Santa Rita community, because, you know, it's really, you know, using local ingredients. You don't use sugar, you use the little fruit of that, you use the leaf of the other thing, and you actually learn about chocolate and cacao making with the local community, which is, you know that I am that kind of adventure, but I'm sure that your clients choosing a program like this will go for an experience like that. So that's kind of the highlight between the drive between San Isidro and your lodge in MISAHUALLI. And then obviously on the following day, you have a lot of different things to do, right? You can visit MISAHUALLI town and just hang out there. You can decide to go on a full day rafting trip with one of the local outfitters, which is, you know, these are our emblematic areas to do some rafting, and actually it doesn't go beyond a level 4. So adventurous, but easy and accessible. Or you can also visit different local communities around the MISAHUALLI area. You have different characters that we would organize and recommend for you to visit. So this is kind of a day at leisure, and we'll make recommendations of different things you want to do. And you can definitely book in advance something like a rafting trip. For example, if the client wants to go on a rafting, they can book on the spot, but definitely we can book that ahead and in advance, so clients already know and are prepared that on this specific day of their Self-Drive, they will have that excursion included, which I think is a lot of fun. Then, like I said, from MISAHUALLI to Baños, this is more or less driving from north to south, but on the lowlands of the Amazon. So it's not only the Pan American Highway, guys, that connects the north of Ecuador with the south of Ecuador. You do have some back roads to get into the south of our country. And this is one of them. And this is actually a fairly new one of them. So we're talking about, you know, the connection between Tena and Puyo, which are probably one of the biggest cities, very tiny little villages, but still cities of the Amazon frontier, like I said. And this is a beautiful road, right? You're pretty much seeing the Amazon, the scenery of the Amazon until you get to Puyo. And I mentioned briefly that Puyo is a very funny, interesting city because remember you have Lago Agrio and Coca, this is north of Ecuador, and those are more like oil cities, right? And then you have Tena, which is very touristic, you know, very touristic, agriculture goes on, but more like very touristic, people go, you know, locals will go, Quiteños will go down there, some tourism happen. The well-known introduction to the rainforest type of lodges are in this area, you know, like Hakuna Matata or La Casa del Suizo or Hamadriade that we use and we love, El Jardín. All of these little lodges are kind of in the Tena area. You know, that's why I say, you know, you have the rafting gang, you have the kayaking people going there, and it connects really well with Papayacta and the Cloud Forest. So that's why it's very touristic. But then Puyo, not so much. Puyo, it's home of probably the third or the fourth busiest airport in Ecuador, believe it or not. You might remember, for the ones who've been hearing me for the last 20 years, we used to talk a lot about Puyo and Shell because it's an airport. It actually is a military base, but it's also an airport where all of the little flights going to different villages of the remote Amazon rainforest depart from Puyo area, which is Shell, is actually the name of the little town that is attached to Puyo. So you have all of these Cessnas, you know, 3-seaters, 5-seaters, 8-seaters flying to the different areas. So it's really, really busy. So, and that means Puyo becomes a hub of different indigenous cultures of the remote Amazon. If you walk in downtown Puyo, you're gonna be bumping into Waorani people, Saparas, Shuar, Ashuar. So it's amazing, you know. It's kind of the United Nations of the Amazon rainforest in one specific place. So it's very rich in culture. And so one of the recommended stops that we make in Puyo is to go to the Omaere Ethnobotanic Museum and meet this guy here that I'm a good friend called Chris. You know, he's married to a local woman, a shaman, and they put together this beautiful ethnobotanical museum where we recommend a stop for you to learn about medicinal plants and the different cultures that I was talking about. You know, because it's hard to go into downtown and start seeing people. I would do it. I would recommend for anyone to do it, but we want to make sure that people get this message that I'm giving you. So going and meeting Chris and doing this little visit to the Omaere, it's definitely worth a stop. And it's also worth a stop because it's by a restaurant that I personally love, El Jardín. That's a place that we've been using for 20 years because each time that was raining and we couldn't fly to the Wild Lodge, we will go to spend and kill time at El Jardín, having a few beers and eating. And Edgar, the owner of the place, I still remember his name. Edgar is a good friend, is a good guy, and the food and the cuisine at El Jardín is delicious. Anyone who went to the Amazon with me to see the Waorani people eventually went there together with me and would comment what I'm saying. So that's kind of a fun stop along the way to Baños. Remember, we're not staying in Puyo, right? So this is, you know, from Tena to Puyo is more or less an hour drive. Then you have the whole day, you know, you can kill 5 hours easily in Puyo to do all of these different things and then move towards Baños and do what I already mentioned, right? This is kind of overlapping with the previous self-drive program. So that's why I invested more time on the Tena and Puyo area, which are rarely talked about, right? So it's probably unknown to most of you, but then Baños is a well-known touristic backpackerish destination of Ecuador. So again, now we're not driving from the Andes down to Baños. Now we're coming from the Amazon up into Baños. Remember, we're climbing a little bit at that 1,000 meter. And you're on this kind of a hippie city where again, you have the waterfall trails. You're seeing now is a must. You have to drive through these waterfall trails up to Baños. So you're going to be seeing from Puyo to Baños. And then in Baños, you can celebrate, you know, your Amazon adventure, you know, within the Bohemian style of city during the night. But you can also go and do your little spa or do the swing to the end of the world that is very famous nowadays because of the photo that you see there. So, you know, it's a fun city with a lot of different things and adventures to make. And then we don't have a free day in Baños because we don't feel it's necessary, because you've been having a lot of adventures in the Amazon for the last couple of days. So we're taking you up into the Andes for a very, again, dramatic change into the Cotopaxi National Park. So you're driving south from Baños through the Pan American Highway south northbound, right? You're heading towards Quito, but then you are diverting and entering the southern entrance of the national park into the park. So today is about the National Park Cotopaxi. You're going to be exploring it. You're going to be going into the Interpretation Center, Limpio Pungo Lake. If you're adventurous, you're going to go up into the Refugio, and then you're going to be driving. And that's a very easy access from the parking lot or Limpio Pungo Lake to the northern exit of the national park, where Chilcabamba is only 6 kilometers away. So it's a beautiful way to end your adventurous day through the national park. And then finally you find this beautiful little lodge in the middle of this valley of volcanoes, where you grab a bite to eat and have a fun last night of adventure. And then obviously very easy from Cotopaxi, from this area, you still have a lot of different things you can do. You can go in the morning on a horseback ride trip with one of our local guides. You can go on a hike at the Pita River, like I explained in detail on our previous webinar, that we invite you to see it again if you want more details about this specific area, because it matches all of the excursions that we put together for both. And then you would drive from this area probably after lunch down into the Quito, straight into the airport. Again, we don't recommend driving into the city. It doesn't make sense. It's unnecessary stress. So you can go into the airport, and you could even stay in one of the beautiful airport hotels we have right now if you're connecting to the Galapagos Islands, for example, afterwards. Or you can actually drop off the car at the rent-a-car at the airport, and then we can coordinate the transfer for you to get into Quito, for you to spend a few days in Quito. So yeah, Diego. So I don't know how I managed to speak for an hour, man, but it went by very fast. A lot of details on the day. A lot of details on the different day. Yeah, thank you so much for another opportunity to share the places and the little programs we put together that I love so much, my friend.
Thank you, Jesse. It was a great webinar, and you said it right. This program is to discover the hidden gems of Ecuador, and of course for more adventurer and independent travelers. So we just have a couple of questions from Don, asking what type of license is needed to rent a car. Just I guess is just any international license that you can.
Yeah, I mean, unlike for example places like Italy, where you actually have to take your international license. Don, if the question comes for you, I imagine you used to have yours, because you're driving very well around our continent. But for kind of a tourist coming to Ecuador, you don't need an international license. You actually only need a valid license, and when you enter as a tourist, you can use it. So that's not an issue.
Great. And well, Jim is asking if the first visitors in Chilcabamba, did they quarantine for 14 days first?
Good question. They quarantined for 2 months. they actually, they were overlanders, and they crossed the border from Colombia to Ecuador at the day that the borders closed. So they ended up stuck in Ibarra, north of Ecuador, for the last 3 months. So that was Chilcabamba was their first stop when they were free and released to be able to continue their drives through Ecuador. Right now, I think they are in Tena. I actually recommended part of this trip that I just described you for them to go and explore. And I think they have hopes to cross the border to Peru eventually at some point. But that's the truth. They didn't fly in internationally like a more of a normal traveler.
And we have one last question. Are there options to rent automatic cars?
There are. Actually, there is a range of vehicles available. There are, fun enough, I like my big SUVs. So when I tried in partnership with the rent-a-car, they gave me this big SUV that was fantastic, automatic, perfect, brand new. But then, yes, so yes, you have automatic and you have on stick, but now automatic is becoming very popular in Ecuador, so they will be available.
Yeah, we will have those options. And well, Jim wanted to take a picture of some slide, but we will make sure you receive the recording of the webinar, so you have all the information there. And yes, please stay tuned to our newsletters so you can watch it again and share it with your team. Thank you, Jassy. It was a great webinar, great places, great programs, and see you in our next edition. Hope you have enjoyed this.
Thank you, Diego. Always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jassy. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye. Thank you all.